Hi, and welcome to the Intervino School of Wine. I'm Sarah Chahardeh, and today we're going to talk about one of the most fascinating food and wine pairing subjects there is, and that is pairing wine to cheese. So, as I said, this is one of the most the most common questions we get asked is what type of wine should I be having with this cheese or that cheese? And the first advice I'm going to give you is often the most surprising one, the one most people often think I'm completely crazy, and that is not to go for red wine. If you're having cheese, go for white wine. There are only a few exceptions where red wine is going to pair up well with cheese. Why? Because the acidity of white wine is much better at pairing up with the high fat and high saltiness content there is in cheese. Secondly, the lactose, so lactose is a sugar, is much better with some form of residual sugar that we have more with white wine. And finally, because the milk protein precipitates tannin in red wine, resulting in a kind of disagreeable pairing on the palate. So if you're having cheese, go for white wine. I know this comes as a surprise to many of you. I come from the southwest of France, and in the southwest of France, most of the time, we're going to have a bottle of Bordeaux with Camembert, and it's not because that's what we do in France or in Italy and Spain that that's the correct thing to do. This is a heritage from the times we were having red wine with our main course. That we kept whatever was left from the red wine of the main course to have with cheese. But that doesn't mean it's a better pairing. The better pairing is almost always going to be white wine. Which white wine with which cheese? Let's have a look at the different categories of cheese and what white wines to pair them up with best. First of all, we have goat's cheese, the goat's cheese categories. Now, to go with the goat's cheese, we're going to prefer wines such as wines from the Loire, Sauvignon Blanc wines. Sauvignon Blanc, you could go from New Zealand. Also Chenin Blanc from the Loire Valley, but also sharp, crisp Chenin Blanc from South Africa are going to be fantastic with goat's cheese. And you could also go with some dry Rieslings or some very dry, crisp Chardonnays, or Aligoté, grape variety from Burgundy, which is also fantastic to have with goat's cheese. Then we go into one of my favorite categories, which is soft cheese with a washed rind, often washed with some form of wine or alcohol. Cheeses such as Epoisses, Maroilles, Münster, Taleggio. All these cheeses are going to need big, powerful, rich white wines, ideally with a bit of age. So Burgundy wines with a bit of age, such as Meursault, Chassagne, or even some of the Chablis Grand Cru, more matter, more consistency in the wine and cheese pairing, with a bit of age are going to be superb. Riesling with a bit of age can also be very interesting. And finally, a great match is Gewürztraminer, which makes a great pairing naturally with Münster. We then have soft cheese with a bloomy rind. So I'm thinking Camembert, Brie, Neufchâtel, Wigmore, Coulommiers. All these cheeses are going to be very interesting with Champagne. Champagne is a beautiful match to Camembert. So can other sparkling wines can also be especially good matches, especially when we have those chalky notes. Other interesting matches can be Chenin Blanc or Chardonnay, but they've got to be unoaked and very much on the lighter, crispier side. We then have our hard cheeses, so the likes of Manchego, Gouda, Edam, Comté, cheddar, of course, provolone, pecorino. These are going to be cheeses with a higher fat content, and they're going to need richer wines. So we're going to go to rich Chardonnays with a bit of age, but we're going to also need a bit of acidity to go with that saltiness. Viognier can be also very interesting if we again have that sharp side. One wonderful match which I adore is Old White Rioja. Which is going to have, like, you know, the old Viognier, the old Chardonnays, we're going to have those nutty notes, which you're also going to find in the cheeses, and they're absolutely wonderful matches to go with wines such as Manchego or some old cheddars, you know, with those salty notes. Finally, we look at the blue cheese category, the Roquefort, the Stiltons, the Gorgonzola cheeses of this world. Cheeses with a high salty content and big, powerful cheeses. Now, if you want a match made in heaven, you go towards sweet wines. Sauterne, sweet Muscat, Old Gewürztraminer, sweet Gewürztraminer, Recioto. These wines are going to be absolutely superb with these high, rich tasting cheeses with a high salty content. And this is really, for me, when we achieve a pairing that's unbelievable. Many times when I do food and wine pairings, I tell people, here, we're going to taste Roquefort and we're going to taste it with Sauterne, and it surprises them. But really, for me, this is probably the greatest food and wine pairing you can have. You know, you have food on one side, the cheese on one side, the wine on the other side, both wonderful, but together they come and create a totally new experience on the palate. And every time I get someone to try that out, they're blown away. Just like an old Epoisses, runny, strong Epoisses with an old Meursault or a slightly oxidized wine from the Jura. Again, with those blue cheeses, we can go towards oxidized wine from southern Spain, the sherries of this world with good sweetness. It's going to be absolutely superb. And that's pretty much it for our food and wine pairing. We've looked at probably the most exciting food and wine pairing subject there is, cheese and wine. I've given you plenty of ideas. Now, do go and try them at home. And if you don't believe me and you still are a fervent supporter of red wine, then take a bottle of red wine, take one of the bottles of white wine, which I recommended, have a cheese and wine evening at home, get your guests to try out and tell me what they thought was the best match. I wish you a wonderful time, and until our next video, santé.